78-year-old Loretta Carson never expected her quiet morning with her beloved bulldog to end in tragedy. What began as an urgent trip to a local veterinary clinic would transform into a shocking display of hatred that would shatter her world. The distinguished veterinarian, with years in the industry thinking he could do whatever he wanted, had no idea who this elderly black woman really was. His arrogant display of prejudice was about to cost him everything. Before we dive into this heartbreaking and shocking story, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The soft golden light of dawn crept through the lace curtains of Loretta Carson's cozy kitchen, casting a warm glow across the well-worn linoleum floor. At 78 years old, Loretta moved with the deliberate care of someone who had learned to navigate the world with arthritic hands and aging joints. But there was a sense of purpose in her movements as she went about her morning routine, a ritual as familiar and comforting as an old sweater. The gentle hum of the refrigerator provided a soothing backdrop as Loretta reached for the canister of premium dog food on the counter. Her fingers, gnarled but still nimble, carefully measured out the exact amount into Mugsy's special ceramic bowl, the one adorned with colorful paw prints that her late husband Thomas had bought years ago. The memory brought a fleeting smile to her lined face, tinged with the bittersweet ache of loss that never truly faded. "There we go, Mugsy," Loretta murmured, her voice warm with affection. "Can't forget your vitamins now, can we?" With practiced ease, she sprinkled the supplement over the kibble, just as she had done every morning for the past 6 years since they first brought Mugsy home. The brown bulldog had been a ray of sunshine in their lives, filling their days with joy and laughter. Now, in the quiet of her widowhood, Mugsy was more than just a pet. He was her constant companion, her reason to get up each morning. The familiar click of Mugsy's nails on the linoleum announced his arrival. Loretta turned, expecting to see his stocky frame waddling eagerly towards his breakfast spot, but the sight that greeted her made her heart skip a painful beat. Mugsy stood in the doorway, his usually bright eyes now dull and glassy. He made no move towards his food bowl, simply staring at it with an air of disinterest that was so unlike him, it sent a chill through Loretta's body. "Mugsy," she called softly, concern etching deeper lines into her face. "Come on, boy, breakfast time." But Mugsy didn't budge. He looked up at Loretta with those sad eyes, then back at his untouched food. The newspaper Loretta had been about to unfold slipped from her suddenly trembling fingers, landing with a soft thud on the table. "Oh no, my boy," Loretta whispered, her voice catching. "Are you not feeling well?" With effort, she pushed herself up from her chair, joints protesting as she knelt beside her beloved companion. Mugsy had always been a voracious eater, practically inhaling his food each morning with gusto. To see him turn away from a full bowl sent ice through her veins, a premonition of something terribly wrong. "You know you can't leave me alone, baby boy," Loretta murmured, wrapping her arms around Mugsy's sturdy frame. She buried her face in his soft fur, inhaling the familiar scent that had become such a comfort to her. "I need you here." As she held Mugsy close, Loretta's mind began to race. What could be wrong? Was it something she had done? Had she missed some sign that he wasn't feeling well? The weight of responsibility and worry pressed down on her, threatening to overwhelm her carefully maintained composure. But Loretta Carson was not a woman easily broken. She had weathered storms before, had faced loss and heartache with a quiet strength that ran deep. Drawing a steadying breath, she gently stroked Mugsy's head, her voice taking on a determined edge. "All right, my love," she said softly. "We'll figure this out together. You and me, just like always." With one last squeeze, Loretta slowly rose to her feet, her mind already turning to what steps she needed to take. As she moved to retrieve her phone, her gaze fell on the empty chair across the table, Thomas's chair. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine him there, his kind eyes crinkling with concern as he offered words of reassurance. "We'll take care of our boy, Loretta," she could almost hear him say. "Don't you worry." Squaring her shoulders, Loretta nodded to herself. Yes, they would take care of Mugsy. Whatever it took, she would make sure her last link to Thomas, her faithful companion, would be all right. As Loretta holds Muggsy close, her mind drifts back to 2 years ago, the day that changed everything. She remembers standing in this same kitchen, receiving the phone call about Thomas, how her husband had gone to what was supposed to be a peaceful protest for racial justice, only to be attacked by counter-protesters. The doctors said it was a heart attack brought on by the stress and violence, but Loretta knew the truth. Hatred had killed her Thomas, just as surely as if they'd used a weapon. Muggsy had been her anchor in those dark days that followed. When grief threatened to drown her, it was his wet nose nudging her hand, his steady presence beside her bed, that kept her tethered to life. Even now, 2 years later, she can't look at Thomas's empty chair without tears forming, but Muggsy's gentle snoring each night reminds her she's not completely alone. She thinks of her son Isaac, who wanted her to move in with him after Thomas passed, but she couldn't bear to be a burden, to interrupt his busy life and promising career. Instead, she and Muggsy moved to this smaller house in a new neighborhood, starting fresh but keeping their precious memories close. Yes, Isaac visits often, handling all the repairs and heavy lifting, but it's Muggsy who gives her days purpose, who listens to her stories about Thomas, who makes this house feel like home. Despite her intense worry, Loretta tries to stay calm as she considers the situation. Muggsy has always been a healthy dog. She made sure of it, feeding him the best food, taking him for daily walks in their small garden, never missing a checkup. But she realizes with a start that since moving here 2 years ago, they've never needed a local vet. Their old vet, Dr. Thompson, was too far away now. With trembling hands, she reaches for her phone, searching for veterinary clinics in the area. The Walker Animal Clinic appears in her search results, its website showing gleaming facilities and smiling staff photos. It's only 15 minutes away, close enough that she won't have to stress Muggsy with a long car ride. She studies the professional photos on the website. Happy pets, caring staff, and what appears to be Dr. Blake Walker himself, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s, pictured holding a grateful family's recovered pet. As she makes the decision to take Muggsy to this new clinic, Loretta can't shake the feeling that she's missing something important. The gleaming facilities and smiling faces seem almost too perfect, too polished. But Muggsy's health comes first, and she pushes her doubts aside, focusing on getting her beloved companion the help he needs. "It's going to be all right, Muggsy," she whispers, gently stroking his head. "We'll get you feeling better in no time." With the decision made, Loretta swiftly arranged their trip to the Walker Animal Clinic. Unable to drive due to her failing eyesight, she called for an Uber, grateful for the technology Isaac had insisted she learn. While waiting, she gathered Muggsy's medical records and leash, her hands trembling slightly. The morning sun cast long shadows across the kitchen floor where Muggsy lay listlessly. Loretta knelt beside him, gently stroking his head, memories of Thomas and his devotion to their pet washing over her. When the Uber arrived, the young driver kindly helped them into the car. As they settled in the back seat, Loretta cradling Muggsy's head in her lap, a mix of gratitude and apprehension filled her. During the drive, Loretta's mind wandered to the Walker Animal Clinic. The website's images of modern facilities and Dr. Walker's smiling face seemed promising, yet a nagging unease persisted. This was, after all, a new clinic she had never visited before. The unfamiliarity of it all, a new vet, a new location, added to her anxiety. She tried to focus on getting Muggsy the help he needed, reminding herself that her apprehension was natural when facing the unknown, especially with something as precious as Muggsy's health at stake. The Walker Animal Clinic stood impressive against the morning sky, a modern 2-story building with large windows that reflected the sunlight. Through the spotless glass, Loretta could see framed photographs she'd viewed online, smiling staff members with various pets, certificates of excellence, and what appeared to be evidence of charity work with animal shelters. The sight reassured her anxious heart somewhat, though that nagging feeling of unease still lingered at the edges of her consciousness. As the Uber driver helped her guide Muggsy out of the car, Loretta took a moment to straighten her cardigan and smooth down her silver hair. Even in times of stress, her innate sense of dignity prevailed. She thanked the driver warmly for his assistance, making a mental note to leave a generous tip through the app, as Isak had shown her. "Come on, Muggsy," she said softly, gently urging her beloved companion forward. "Let's get you feeling better." The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh, welcoming them into the cool, air-conditioned interior. The waiting room was tastefully decorated in calming blues and greens, with comfortable chairs and a small play area for pets. The scent of disinfectant hung in the air, not unpleasant but noticeable. A reminder that this was, after all, a medical facility. A young blonde receptionist looked up from her computer, a warm smile spreading across her face as Loretta and Muggsy approached the desk. Her nameplate read Leonie, and there was a genuine kindness in her eyes that immediately put Loretta more at ease. "Good morning. Welcome to Walker Animal Clinic," Leonie greeted them cheerfully. Her gaze fell on Muggsy, and a flicker of concern passed over her features before her professional smile reasserted itself. "I don't believe we've seen you before." "No, dear," Loretta responded, one hand protectively on Muggsy's head. She could feel the slight tremor running through his body, whether from fear or illness she couldn't be sure. "We're new to the area. My Muggsy here, he's not eating, and that's not like him at all." Leonie's expression softened with sympathy. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let's get some information from you, and we'll have Dr. Walker take a look at Muggsy as soon as possible." As Leonie began to type Loretta's details into the computer, asking questions about Muggsy's medical history and current symptoms, Loretta found herself relaxing slightly. The clinic seemed professional, the staff caring. Perhaps her earlier misgivings had been unfounded, merely the result of worry for her beloved pet. But just as this thought crossed her mind, a commotion suddenly erupted from one of the examination rooms. The sound of something heavy hitting a wall made Loretta jump, her hand tightening instinctively on Muggsy's collar. This was followed by a man's angry voice, the words muffled but the tone clear enough to send a chill down Loretta's spine. Leonie's fingers froze over her keyboard, her eyes widening for a moment before she quickly composed herself. "I'm so sorry about that," she said, her voice slightly strained. "Sometimes our patients can get a bit anxious during examinations." Before Loretta could respond, Leonie excused herself hurriedly, disappearing into the back. The waiting room fell into an uneasy silence, broken only by the soft whimper Muggsy let out as he pressed closer to Loretta's legs. "It's all right, my love," Loretta murmured, though she wasn't sure if she was reassuring Muggsy or herself. "Everything's going to be fine." When Leonie returned a few minutes later, her professional smile seemed strained, a slight tremor visible in her hands as she resumed typing on her computer. Loretta opened her mouth to ask what had happened, but before she could form the words, the door to the back area swung open. Dr. Blake Walker emerged, looking every bit as distinguished as his photos had suggested. He was tall, with silver hair neatly combed and a crisp white coat that spoke of authority and expertise. But there was something in his eyes, a hardness that hadn't been visible in the website photos, that made Loretta's earlier unease resurface. The doctor's gaze swept the waiting room, landing first on a young white woman cradling a Persian cat. His face transformed, a warm smile spreading across his features as he greeted her. "Mrs. Thompson, how lovely to see you again, and how is little Snowball doing today?" The exchange was brief but filled with a gentle manner that seemed to put everyone at ease. Loretta found herself relaxing slightly, thinking perhaps she had misjudged the situation. But when Dr. Walker turned to her, the change was subtle but unmistakable. His smile remained in place, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. There was a flicker of something in his gaze as it fell on Loretta and Muggsy. It passed so quickly she almost missed it, but years of life experience had honed her instincts. "You must be new here," Dr. Walker said smoothly, his tone professional but lacking the warmth he'd shown to the previous client. "I'm Dr. Walker. I'll be with you shortly." Before Loretta could respond, He had turned away, disappearing back into the examination area. She was left standing there, one hand on Muggsy's head, a growing sense of unease settling in the pit of her stomach. The minutes ticked by slowly as Loretta sat in the waiting room, her hand resting protectively on Muggsy's head. The bulldog lay at her feet, his usual energetic demeanor replaced by a listlessness that made Loretta's heart ache. She tried to focus on the positive. They were here, help was at hand. But she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her since Dr. Walker's brief interaction. The waiting room had emptied out, leaving Loretta and Muggsy alone with the gentle hum of the air conditioning and the muffled sounds from the back of the clinic. Leonie, the young receptionist, kept glancing their way with a mixture of sympathy and what Loretta thought might be nervousness. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, Dr. Walker emerged once more from the back. His face was a mask of professional detachment as he approached Loretta and Muggsy. "Mrs. Carson, we're ready for you now," he said, his voice devoid of the warmth he had shown to other patients. "Follow me." As Loretta slowly stood, helping Muggsy to his feet, she caught Leonie's eye. The young receptionist's face was a mixture of sympathy and something else. Was it fear? The look sent another chill through Loretta, but she squared her shoulders and followed Dr. Walker, determined to get Muggsy the help he needed. In the examination room, Dr. Walker's demeanor had shifted subtly. His earlier warmth seemed to have cooled completely, his eyes rarely meeting Loretta's as she explained Muggsy's symptoms. Instead, he stared at his computer screen, typing rapidly, his jaw visibly tense. "And how long has the dog been showing these symptoms?" he asked, still not looking at her. "Since this morning," Loretta answered, noticing how he referred to Muggsy as the dog rather than using his name, despite her mentioning it several times. "He's never refused his food before. He's always been such a good eater." Dr. Walker's fingers stopped typing abruptly. He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "It could be something serious," he said curtly. "I'll need to sedate him for a proper examination. Wait outside." The command in his voice made Loretta flinch. She wanted to object, to stay with her beloved companion, but the doctor was already turning away, pulling out equipment with sharp, angry movements. "But can't I stay with him?" Loretta asked, her voice small but determined. "He gets nervous around strangers, and I—" Dr. Walker cut her off with a sharp look. "Mrs. Carson, I am the professional here. If you want your dog treated, you'll do as I say. Wait, outside." The coldness in his voice sent a chill down Loretta's spine. She looked down at Muggsy, who was trembling slightly on the table. Every instinct told her not to leave him, but she felt powerless in the face of Dr. Walker's authority. With a heavy heart, Loretta leaned down to Muggsy's ear. "It's okay, my love," she whispered. "I'll be right outside. Be brave for me." The door closed behind her with a final sounding click, leaving Loretta alone in the sterile hallway. She leaned against the wall, her legs suddenly weak. The sound of Dr. Walker moving around the examination room filtered through the door, along with Muggsy's soft whimpers. As she stood there, feeling more alone than she had in years, Loretta couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a terrible mistake. But what choice did she have? Muggsy needed help, and Dr. Walker was the only option available. All she could do now was wait and pray that her beloved companion would be okay. Stepping outside the clinic's glass doors, Loretta took a deep breath of the morning air, trying to calm her racing heart. Her instincts told her to take Muggsy and leave, and she found herself looking up other vet clinics on her phone. The closest alternative was almost an hour away in the next town. Looking back at the clinic's impressive facade, the professional signage, the modern equipment visible inside, she tried to reason with herself. "I'm just being paranoid," she whispered. "Muggsy needs help now. I can't waste time driving across the county." With shaking hands, she pulled out her phone and dialed her son's number. She needed to hear Isaac's reassuring voice, needed someone to tell her she wasn't overreacting. "Hey, Mama, everything okay?" Isaac answered quickly, concern evident in his tone. "Yes, baby. I'm just at the Walker Animal Clinic with Muggsy. He's not feeling well." She tried to keep her voice steady, not wanting to worry him unnecessarily. Want me to come down there? The offer was immediate, and Loretta felt a rush of love for her son. No, you're working. I just wanted you to know where I am. If anything feels wrong, I'll call you right away. You better, Mama. You know I'm always here if you need me. The warmth in Isaac's voice helped calm her nerves. After ending the call, Loretta stood up, smoothing down her skirt with hands that trembled slightly less now. She took another deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The clinic might be unfamiliar, but it was clearly a professional establishment. She had to believe that Dr. Walker, despite his cold demeanor, would do right by Muggsy. As she walked back inside, Loretta silently prayed. "Lord, give me strength," she whispered, "and please watch over my Muggsy." The waiting room was quieter now, most of the morning rush having cleared out. Leonie looked up as Loretta entered, a flicker of something. Was it concern? Passing over her face before her professional smile reasserted itself. "Mrs. Carson, Dr. Walker is still examining Muggsy," she said softly. "Can I get you some water while you wait?" Loretta nodded gratefully, settling into one of the plush chairs. The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness as Loretta sat in the waiting room, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The cheerful decor of the clinic now seemed to mock her growing anxiety. Every tick of the clock on the wall felt like a hammer blow to her nerves. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the examination room. The sound of something heavy hitting a wall made Loretta jump to her feet, her heart pounding. This was followed by a man's voice, Dr. Walker's voice raised in anger. "Damn it, hold still, you stupid mutt." The words, clear and filled with venom, sent ice through Loretta's veins. Before she could move, another sound pierced the air, a scream that turned her blood to ice. It was the same angry voice, but now with a triumphant edge that sent chills down her spine. "There, that'll teach you to bite me, you worthless creature." Loretta's world seemed to tilt on its axis. She stumbled towards the examination room door, her legs feeling like lead. But before she could reach it, the door burst open. Leonie rushed out, her face pale as chalk, eyes wide with horror. "Mrs. Carson, I'm so sorry, there's been an accident." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Loretta felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked from the room. She pushed past Leonie, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. As she entered the examination room, the scene that greeted her stopped her dead in her tracks. Muggsy lay motionless on the cold metal table, his tongue lolling lifelessly from his mouth, his usually bright eyes now dull and empty. Dr. Walker stood at his computer, typing as if nothing extraordinary had happened, as if he hadn't just shattered an elderly woman's world. He didn't even turn to look at her as she stumbled forward, her trembling hands reaching for Muggsy's still warm body. "No, no, no," Loretta whispered, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "Please, God, no." Her fingers sank into Muggsy's familiar brown fur, but there was no response, no gentle thump of his tail, no loving lick of her hand. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by her quiet sobs. As the reality of what had happened began to sink in, a wave of grief unlike anything Loretta had felt since Thomas's death washed over her. Muggsy had been more than just a pet. He had been her companion, her comfort, her last living link to the life she had shared with Thomas, and now in this cold, sterile room, that final connection had been cruelly severed. Through her tears, Loretta looked up at Dr. Walker, still typing away as if nothing had happened. The casual disregard, the complete lack of empathy, sparked something in Loretta, a fire that burned through her grief, igniting a rage she hadn't known she was capable of feeling. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice low and dangerous. "What happened to my dog?" Dr. Walker finally turned, his face a mask of professional detachment. But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of satisfaction quickly hidden, that made Loretta's blood run cold. "There were complications," he said smoothly. "These things happen sometimes. If you'll just sign these release forms, you can take the body." "No," she said firmly. "I'm not signing anything until I know exactly what happened here." Dr. Walker's face darkened, a flash of anger crossing his features before he schooled them back into professional detachment. "Mrs. Carson, I understand you're upset, but as I explained, these things can happen. Now, if you'll just—" "No," Loretta interrupted, her voice stronger now. "Something isn't right here, and I'm not leaving until I know the truth." The room fell into tense silence, broken only by the soft whir of medical equipment. Loretta looked from Dr. Walker's tightly controlled expression to Leonie's tear-stained face, then down at Muggsy's still form. In that moment she made a decision. With gentle hands she gathered Muggsy's body into her arms, cradling him as she had so many times before. "I'm taking my dog home," she said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Dr. Walker's face paled slightly, but he quickly recovered. "Mrs. Carson, I must insist—" "No," Loretta cut him off. "You've done enough. Leonie, dear, would you please help me call for a ride?" As Leonie hurried forward to assist, Dr. Walker made a move as if to stop them, but something in Loretta's eyes, a mixture of grief, determination, and righteous anger, made him step back. Loretta walked out of the examination room with as much dignity as she could muster, Muggsy's lifeless body held close to her heart. As they passed through the waiting room, she was aware of the shocked stares of other patients, but she kept her head high. The day that had started with hope had turned into a nightmare. Outside the clinic, Loretta sat alone on a bench, Muggsy's lifeless body wrapped in a blanket across her lap. Tears streamed down her weathered cheeks as she cradled her beloved companion. The reality of her loss crashing over her in waves. The bustling parking lot faded into the background as she lost herself in memories of Muggsy's wagging tail, his comforting presence during lonely nights, and the unconditional love he had given her. "Oh, Muggsy," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "What am I going to do without you?" Her fingers gently stroked his still warm fur, unable to comprehend that he was truly gone. As she sat there, lost in her grief, she barely noticed the clinic door opening. It wasn't until a shadow fell across her that she looked up, startled to see Leonie standing there. The young receptionist's face was pale, her eyes darting nervously around the parking lot as if afraid of being seen. "Mrs. Carson," Leonie said, her voice barely above a whisper, I need to tell you something about what happened to Muggsy." Loretta's heart clenched, a mixture of dread and desperate hope filling her. "What is it, child?" she asked, her voice hoarse from crying. Leonie glanced around once more before sitting next to Loretta, her body tense with fear and guilt. "He did it on purpose," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I saw him check the injection label twice. He knew exactly what he was doing." As Leonie's words tumbled out, revealing the horrifying truth of Dr. Walker's actions, Loretta listened in stunned silence. The young woman explained the clinic's history of accidents with pets belonging to black families, how Dr. Walker had turned away countless black pet owners with flimsy excuses, and the escalating pattern of cruelty that had led to this moment. "I should have said something sooner," Leonie sobbed, "but I needed this job and I never thought he'd actually—" She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. The truth hung heavy in the air between them. Loretta sat in shocked silence, her hand absently stroking Muggsy's still form. The weight of Leonie's words settled over her like a heavy blanket, suffocating in its implications. It wasn't just an accident, it wasn't just negligence, it was deliberate, calculated cruelty. "How long?" Loretta asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How long has this been going on?" As Leonie continued to reveal the extent of Dr. Walker's actions, Loretta's grief began to transform. A cold fury built in her chest, pushing back against the tide of sorrow. This wasn't just about Muggsy anymore. This was about standing up to the very hatred that had taken her Thomas from her, that continued to poison their community. "We can't let them get away with this," Loretta said, her voice gaining strength. "We can't let them keep hurting people, hurting innocent animals, just to spread their hate." Leonie nodded, a spark of determination breaking through her fear. "I'll testify," she said. "I'll tell everything I know. I should have spoken up sooner, but I was afraid." Loretta reached out, taking the young woman's hand in her own. "You're speaking up now," she said gently. "That's what matters." As they sat there, an unlikely pair united by tragedy and a shared desire for justice, Loretta's mind raced. She knew what she had to do next, knew who she needed to call. But first, she had one more question for Leonie. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice steady and determined. "Every detail, every incident. We're going to make sure this never happens to anyone else again." As Leonie's words tumbled out, painting a picture of systematic cruelty and discrimination, Loretta felt a mix of emotions washing over her. Grief for Muggsy, anger at Dr. Walker, and a deep, aching sadness for all the other families who had suffered similar losses. But beneath it all, a steely determination was taking root. "Mrs. Carson," Leonie said, her voice trembling, "there's more. Dr. Walker, he keeps records, detailed records of every accident, every family he's turned away. He calls it his quality control log, but it's horrible. Names, dates, even notes about which families he thinks are more likely to cause trouble if something goes wrong." Loretta's eyes widened. "Where are these records?" "In his office computer. It's password protected, but—" Leonie hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "I know the password. I've seen him enter it so many times." For a moment Loretta was silent, processing this information. Then she nodded, her face set with resolve. "We need to get those records, but first, I need to make a call." With hands that had stopped shaking, Loretta pulled out her phone. There was no hesitation as she dialed her son's number. Leonie watched nervously as Loretta spoke into the phone, her voice calm but filled with steel. "Isaac, baby, I need you at the Walker Animal Clinic right now." She paused, listening. "No, son, Muggsy's gone. That man in there, he killed him on purpose." Another pause. "Yes, baby. Like they killed your dad because of who we are." Leonie's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. "Your son? Who is he?" Loretta's eyes, though filled with tears, held a glimmer of something else now, determination. "You'll see, child, you'll see." As she ended the call, Loretta turned back to Leonie. "We don't have much time. Can you get those records?" Leonie nodded, a newfound courage evident in her posture. "Yes, ma'am, I can do it." "Good," Loretta said, "because what we're about to do, it's going to change everything. Are you ready for that?" For a moment, Leonie looked uncertain. Then she straightened her back, meeting Loretta's gaze with determination. "Yes, Mrs. Carson, I'm ready. It's time someone stood up to Dr. Walker." As Leonie hurried back into the clinic, Loretta sat with Muggsy's body, her mind racing. She thought of Thomas, of his unwavering commitment to justice. She thought of all the families who had suffered at Dr. Walker's hands. And she thought of Muggsy, her faithful companion who had been taken from her so cruelly. "We're going to make this right," she whispered, stroking Muggsy's fur. "For you, for Thomas, for everyone who's been hurt by hate. I promise you that." The fight for justice was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The wail of sirens grew louder, cutting through the quiet morning air. Loretta sat straighter on the bench, her resolve strengthening with each passing moment. She could see heads turning in the parking lot, curious onlookers wondering what could be happening at the normally quiet veterinary clinic. Just then, a gleaming police cruiser pulled into the lot, its blue and white colors catching the morning sun. The man who stepped out made Loretta's heart swell with pride. Police Chief Isaac Carson stood an impressive 6 feet tall, his police uniform pristine, his badge gleaming in the sunlight. But it was the look in his eyes, a mixture of fury and controlled professionalism, that commanded attention. Isaac strode purposefully towards his mother, his face a mask of concern and determination. As he approached, Loretta could see the moment he registered Muggsy's still form in her arms. A flicker of pain crossed his features before his professional demeanor reasserted itself. "Mama," he said softly, kneeling before her, "tell me everything." And so, with Muggsy's body cradled in her lap, Loretta recounted the morning's events. She told Isak about Dr. Walker's cold demeanor, about the sounds she'd heard from the examination room, about Leonie's confession. With each word she could see the anger building in her son's eyes, carefully controlled but unmistakable. "And now," Loretta concluded, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall, "Leonie's inside getting proof, records of everything Dr. Walker's done." Isak nodded, his jaw clenched tight. "You did good, Mama, real good. We're going to make this right." Just then Leonie burst out of the clinic, a USB drive clutched tightly in her hand. Her eyes widened at the sight of Isak in his police uniform, but she hurried over nonetheless. "I got them," she said breathlessly, handing the drive to Loretta. "Everything's there, names, dates, details of what he did. It's worse than I thought." Isak stood, his imposing figure seeming to grow even taller. "Miss," he said to Leonie, his voice kind but firm, "I'm going to need you to give an official statement. Can you do that for us?" Leonie nodded, her earlier fear replaced by determination. "Yes, sir. I'll tell you everything I know." Isak turned back to his mother, his expression softening. "Mama, I need you to go home now. Take Muggsy. I'll handle things here." But Loretta shook her head, her grip on Muggsy tightening slightly. "No, baby, I'm staying right here. This isn't just about Muggsy anymore, it's about all of us, about what your dad fought for." For a moment, Isak looked like he might argue. Then he nodded, understanding and respect clear in his eyes. "All right, Mama, but you stay out here, you hear? Let me handle what's inside." As Isak turned towards the clinic, his hand resting on his holstered weapon, Loretta called out to him, "Isak, baby?" He paused, looking back at her. "Remember what your daddy always said. Justice doesn't always wear a uniform." A grim smile crossed Isak's face. "I remember, Mama, don't you worry." As Isak approached the clinic entrance, his hand resting on his holstered weapon, the air seemed to crackle with tension. He paused, turning to Leonie with a meaningful look. "Ms. Leonie, I trust you didn't see what's about to happen in there." Understanding dawned on Leonie's face, her eyes widening slightly. She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to organize some files in the back room." With that, she hurried away, her footsteps echoing in the now quiet waiting area. Isak entered Dr. Walker's office alone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that seemed to reverberate through the building. For several long minutes, the only sounds were muffled thuds, crashes, and what sounded like breaking glass. Each noise made Loretta flinch, her arms tightening around Muggsy's still form. As she sat outside, her face set in stone, Loretta's mind wandered. She thought of Thomas, of his unwavering belief in justice and equality. She remembered the nights he'd come home, exhausted but determined, from civil rights meetings. The way he'd explained to a young Isak that sometimes fighting for what's right meant taking risks. "Your daddy always said that justice doesn't always come through official channels, Muggsy," she whispered to her departed companion. "But it comes, nonetheless." The sounds from inside the clinic continued, a harsh symphony of retribution. Loretta knew that what was happening wasn't strictly legal, but in her heart she felt it was right. Dr. Walker's actions had gone beyond the bounds of law. They had entered the realm of moral depravity. And sometimes, she thought, evil must be met with a force it understands. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the parking lot, Loretta sat straight-backed on her bench. She was no longer just a grieving pet owner. In this moment, she was a woman carrying on her husband's legacy, ensuring that justice, in whatever form it took, would be served. The clinic door swung open, and Dr. Walker emerged, led by Isak. The once pristine white coat was now stained with splatters of red, his face a canvas of bruises and swelling. 2 additional police cars had arrived, their lights painting the scene in alternating flashes of blue and red. Loretta watched, her face a mask of calm determination, as Dr. Walker was marched past her. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Where there had once been arrogance and disdain, Loretta now saw fear and defeat. But there was no remorse, only a hatred that seemed to have deepened. As they reached the police cruiser, Dr. Walker suddenly spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper. "You people, you're all the same, always playing the victim." Isaac's grip on the vet's arm tightened visibly, but before he could respond, Loretta's voice cut through the air, clear and strong. "No, Dr. Walker, we're not all the same. Some of us value life, all life. Some of us fight against hatred, not spread it. And some of us—" She paused, her eyes boring into his. "Some of us win." Dr. Walker's face contorted with rage. "You'll bitterly regret this," he spat. "With my status, I can do whatever I want. I'll see you in court for what your thugs in uniform just did to me. This isn't over." With that, Dr. Walker was placed in the back of the cruiser, the door slamming shut with a finality that seemed to mark the end of a dark chapter, despite his threats. Isaac approached his mother, his uniform disheveled but his eyes clear and focused. He knelt beside her, gently placing a hand on Muggsy's still form. "It's done, Mama," he said softly. "He won't hurt anyone else ever again." As the last police car pulled away, its sirens silent but lights still flashing, a heavy silence fell over the parking lot. Loretta stood, cradling Muggsy's body close, feeling the weight of all that had happened and all that was still to come. "What happens now?" she asked, her eyes never leaving the retreating police cars. Isaac sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Now comes the hard part. We've got the evidence from his computer, Leonie's testimony, and—" He paused, a grim smile flickering across his face. "Let's just say Dr. Walker was very cooperative in providing a full confession." Loretta raised an eyebrow at this but didn't comment. Some things she knew were better left unsaid. "There will be an investigation," Isaac continued. "It's going to get ugly, Mama. People are going to say things, try to defend him. The media will be all over this. Are you ready for that?" Loretta nodded slowly, then hesitated. "Isaac, Dr. Walker. He said he'd see us in court for what happened to him. He seemed so sure of himself, even after everything." Isaac's face hardened for a moment, then softened as he looked at his mother. "Don't worry about that, Mama. There won't be many people willing to speak up. No one was in the clinic when I talked to him. And Leonie, well, she didn't see anything, you know." He gave a meaningful look. "If I have to face consequences, I will. This is worth it. We can't get Muggsy back, so this is the least I can do for you and for him." Loretta straightened her back, her chin lifting with determination. Her voice, when she spoke, was filled with a quiet strength that reminded Isaac so much of his father. "I've been ready since the day they took your daddy from us. This fight, it's bigger than just Muggsy now. It's about everything Thomas stood for, everything he died for. It's about making sure that no other family has to go through what we did today." Isaac nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "I know, Mama, and we're going to see it through, together." As they walked to Isaac's car, Loretta paused, looking back at the clinic. In the fading light, she could almost see Thomas standing there, his kind eyes filled with pride and love. "We're finishing what you started, my love," she whispered, "and we won't stop until the job is done." Isaac gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come on, Mama, let's go home. We've got work to do." As they drove away, Loretta cradled Muggsy's body, her mind already racing with plans. She would tell their story, reach out to other victims, rally the community. This wasn't the end, it was a beginning. The day that had started with hope turned into a nightmare, and ended with a bittersweet victory was over. But the struggle for true equality, for justice, for a world where hatred couldn't destroy innocent lives, that struggle was far from over. And Loretta Carson, with her son by her side, and the memory of Thomas and Muggsy to guide her, was ready to lead the charge. No matter how long it took, no matter the obstacles they would face, they would see this through, for Muggsy, for Thomas, for justice.